I've just woke up to reports on MSN News, turned on my laptop. MSN, the news feed came up from different sources. Trevor Phillips has been suspended from the Labour Party. Now, supposedly, this is over past comments he made, which they interpret as Islamophobic. Trevor Phillips, if you don't know, has been a high profile figure in British public life for a long time now. Former chair of uh, the Commission for Racial Equality, or get the precise title up. I'm just disgusted by this, to be quite honest, and I'm going to explain why. He is a former ex-chairman of the Equality and Human Rights Commission. Um, Phillips is respected across the board. He's respected by left and right as a man who has consistently spoken the truth on difficult issues, a man who has, in my opinion, shown integrity. Now, their basis for removing him is supposedly, um, this is what the report says. I won't read out the whole thing, it's a bit lengthy, but I'm just shocked by this. Shocked but not surprised. Um, yeah, Mr. Phillips has been suspended pending investigation over remarks including expressing concern about Pakistani Muslim men sexually abusing children in northern British towns, according to the Times, which is a fact. It's happened. This complaint also covers his comments about the failure of some Muslims to wear poppies for Remembrance Sunday and the sympathy shown by some in an opinion poll towards the motives of the Charlie Hebdo attackers. Again, this is verifiable. The paper said many of the statements are years old, but Labour's General Secretary Jenny Formby, shame on her, suspended him as a matter of urgency to protect the party's reputation. To protect the party's reputation? This only damages the party's reputation. And speaking to BBC Radio 4's Today programme, Mr. Phillips stood by his previous assertions that Muslims were different, adding, well, actually, that's true. The point is, Muslims are different, and in many ways, I think that's admirable. But he criticised that may not have been the best choice of words, but anyway, he criticised the party for taking offence, saying, I'm kind of surprised at what is and always has been an open and democratic party. Well, it's not now. Mr. Phillips, don't delude yourself. It clearly isn't. Decides that its members cannot have healthy debate about how we address differences of values and outlooks. Mr. Phillips went on to describe the decision by Labour to adopt the definition of Islamophobia agreed to by an all-party parliamentary group on British Muslims as nonsense, as Muslims were not a race. This is just. He added, my objection is very simple. That definition said that Islamophobia is rooted in a kind of racism, expressions of hostility towards Muslimness. First of all, Muslims are not a race. My personal hero was Muhammad Ali, before that Malcolm X. They became Muslims largely because it is a pan-racial faith. This is not a racial grouping, so describing hostility to them as racial is nonsense. Mr. Phillips was the founding chair of the EHRC, which is currently investigating anti-Semitism in the Labour Party when it launched in 2006. He has previously made documentaries about race and multiculturalism and now chairs Index on Censorship, a group that campaigns for freedom of expression. Asked if he would change his language as a result of the suspension, Mr. Phillips pointed out this new rule, adding, frankly, it would be a bit odd if I suddenly decided because I had been kicked out of the club I couldn't express my beliefs. And that only makes me respect the man even more. He's not giving in. He won't be bullied into silence. I'm disgusted by the Labour Party. Jenny Formby, you're a minnow. You are a minnow. You're not a leader. Because they're saying this is to protect the reputation. You know, a day after International Women's Day, the point about the grooming cases was that was covered up. It was one of the most uh, appalling examples of child sexual abuse this country has ever seen. At least 1,400 victims in Rotherham alone, and that extends across the north of England. And the fact of the matter is, this isn't rumours, this isn't conspiracy theories, this isn't cooked up by the tabloid press. The verifiable fact by police data is that the majority of the perpetrators, the vast majority, were Pakistani British men preying on white girls. And one reason for that was the racist notion that they were fair game, that they were loose. These were vulnerable young women, girls, and this was on a very large scale. And one of the reasons that it wasn't sufficiently tackled in the beginning was because the police, the Labour Party, which largely governed these towns and cities, places like Rotherham and Rochdale, they deemed it politically incorrect to call the problem by its name. Because they thought, well, oh, it's brown skinned offenders, so we don't want to look racist. That's the facts. And they haven't learned a damn thing. And it makes me very angry because it makes me angry for a lot of reasons. It makes me angry because it's an insult to those victims, but it also makes me angry because it doesn't bode well for the future. It shows they haven't learned a thing. It shows that they're going to continue engaging in cover ups on the grounds that they value political correctness more than safety. Because if you cannot talk about a problem, if you cannot identify the problem and tackle it, then you get nothing done. I mean, Mr. Phillips has also been very candid about knife crime in London and young black men killing young black men in London. I absolutely hate and despise the cowardice of this sort of political correctness. This is not about tolerance. This is about dishonesty. If someone's saying all British Muslim men are rapists, that's inflammatory, that's wrong. But recognizing what this is, recognizing who is responsible, is not racist. It's just not, because how can it, stating a fact be racist? We have got so hung up on language policing that we fail to actually see what is happening, or rather, those in power do. I'm absolutely disgusted by the Labour Party over this because they seem to think that, okay, we're being investigated for anti Semitism claims, so let's censor criticism of Islam. Logic. Incidentally, on the anti Semitism side, because I know there will be people out there saying, oh, but Nathan, how about criticizing Judaism? How about criticizing Israel? Well, again, you could criticize Israel, but where the problem lies is when it's uniquely focused at Israel. And as for Judaism, I believe it's legitimate to criticize aspects of the religion. For example, some ultra Orthodox Jewish men refuse to sit next to women on a plane. They need to be called out for the misogynists that they are. But there is a problem, and a long standing problem, and it's verifiable. It's evidence based of anti Semitic conspiracy theories that have little basis in fact. The Dawes treat all Jewish people as one and the same, as the Jews, and that's spiteful, and that directly relates to hate crime. Now, if this shouldn't even need to be said, it's just obvious. Hating all Muslims is wrong. Okay, so if Trevor Phillips was coming out with some sort of rant about all Muslims being the same, that would be a problem. But what has he done? He has said that Islam isn't a race, which is factually true. There's white Muslims. I just think it's incredibly dangerous to conflate a religion with race. I think it's incredibly dangerous to have language policing around a religion. What the Labour Party is essentially saying is we will not talk about religion. It's I mean they've become actually ironically ultra conservative in that sense. And it's an absolute travesty. Of course, I have no problem with criticizing Christianity. That's a-okay. You know, the Labour Party is never going to take an issue with that. They're never going to take an issue with the fact that Christians are being slaughtered in West Africa indiscriminately, that they're being made refugees in large parts of the Middle East in their thousands. And it's what disgusts me most of all is how anyone who challenges this mantra, who challenges this censorship, is portrayed as some sort of alt-right person. I've always spoken out against the far right. I've always spoken out against neo-nationalist types. But this amounts to a blasphemy though, or a um, blasphemy thinking. And it's repugnant and it's cowardly. And it says to me the Labour Party hasn't learned a damn thing. So I would say to those Labour MPs who respect Mr. Phillips, who see that this is a problem, they need to speak out. They need to say, no, we have to have candid discussions within this party. Otherwise, Labour is doomed. Labour has no right to call itself a democratic party, an open party, because it won't be. This is not some sort of reasonable, noble attempt to take on actual anti-Muslim bigotry. This is an attempt to censor. Now, if something emerges that shows that Trevor Phillips has come out with genuinely hateful rants against all Muslims, that would be a different matter. But that is not what this is based on. Formby said we take allegations of Islamophobia extremely seriously. But do you take allegations of vulnerable young women being abused extremely seriously? Apparently not. It makes my blood boil, and I hope she gets a lot of heat for this. I really do. I'm disgusted by this, quite honestly. I mean, I'm angry at the way Mr. Phillips has been treated. I think he's a decent man who has integrity and he has told the truth and he's being punished for that. But this goes beyond Mr. Phillips. This will have implications for anyone who dares to speak the truth. Labour's history. Labour is just, Lisa Nandy kept saying we need to listen to people. Well, I wonder what her take is on this. In fact, I might pay a visit to her page and see how she's responding to this because it matters. It matters for the future of the party. And if Keir Starmer and the others endorse it, then I won't be endorsing them. There has to be scope to criticize religion or cultural values. There has to be. I'm disgusted to be quite honest. Anyway, I'll leave it there, but put a link to the article. Very sad that freedom of conscience has been silenced over the phony guise of tolerance, and shame on all those who constantly use Islamophobia as a way to silence debate. Their cards, their moral cards, because they're not saying it's wrong to vilify all Muslims. What they're saying is we want to censor legitimate debate. I'm utterly disgusted by it. And by the way, there's prominent British Muslims as well, like Majid Nawaz and others, who recognise how insane this is.